All right, let's dive in. Today we're exploring a collection of sermons from Imam Ali, who is the fourth caliph and a huge figure in Islamic history. And these aren't just dry historical documents. No way. They're masterpieces of Arabic rhetoric, packed with deep theology, moral guidance, and some really intense political commentary that has been resonating for centuries.
Right from the very first line of the very first sermon, you get hit with this incredible sense of awe and humility. The text just lays it out there. God is completely beyond anything we can describe or even really comprehend. It sets this tone that's both beautiful and deeply philosophical, kind of challenging you to think way beyond the limits of your own words. So here's how we're going to break this down. We'll start with the huge cosmic scale of creation, then we'll zoom into the story of humanity. After that, we'll get into a really critical moment of political crisis, explore the core moral teachings, and then wrap up with the text's powerful call to action.
Okay, so first up, very beginning of everything. The first sermon doesn't kick off with politics or everyday advice. It launches into this absolutely breathtaking story of how the universe itself was created.
First, a really key term you gotta know is khotbeh. It basically means a sermon or an oration. So this wasn't just stuff written down in a book for quiet reading. It was meant to be proclaimed out loud, in a public square or a mosque. It was designed to grab your attention, to persuade and to inspire.
The creation story in this first sermon is just so dynamic. I mean, picture this. The text describes God splitting open the layers of space, creating this huge, churning ocean of water. Then, a powerful wind is commanded to whip up that ocean until foam just rises to the top. And it's from that cosmic foam that the seven heavens are made. What an image, right?
Okay, so we've gone from the huge, cosmic scale, and now the sermons zoom right in on the personal. The focus shifts from making galaxies to making us, humanity, and our purpose, and, of course, our first big moral test.
And this is such a brilliant way to explain human nature. The text says that the first human, Adam, was made from a handful of dirt gathered from all over the planet. Dirt that was soft, hard, sweet, salty. See, it's not just a creation story. It's really a metaphor for why we're all so different, why we have so many different personalities and temperaments.
And right away, you get the first major conflict. The text tells the story of the angels being asked to bow to Adam, but Satan refuses. And his whole reason? Pure arrogance. He thought he was better because he was made from fire, while Adam was just made from clay. This act of pride, this idea of comparing origins, is shown as the very root of the first sin.
So this creates this whole narrative arc that, according to the sermon, really defines the human experience. We start out in paradise, a place of ease. Then we're deceived by Satan, which leads to us being sent down to earth, which is described as the house of trial. But the story doesn't end there. Humanity isn't just left alone. A whole line of prophets is sent to keep reminding us of our original mission and help guide us back.
All right, now we're getting to what is probably one of the most famous and definitely most debated sermons in the whole collection. It's often called the Sermon of the Thunderbolt. And this one deals directly with the leadership crisis that happened right after the death of the Prophet Muhammad.
Now, to really get what's going on here, you have to understand the idea of the caliphate. This was the leadership role for the entire Muslim community after the Prophet. And the question of who should lead and why was the single most important and divisive issue of that time. Its fallout is still being felt today.
So what exactly was the crisis? What's the problem here from the text's point of view? The Sermon of the Thunderbolt is a really personal and pained story of what happened, told from one very specific perspective.
Okay. In this line, this is the heart of the argument in Sermon 3. The speaker, Ali, is claiming that the first caliph, Abu Bakr, took the leadership even though he knew that Ali's own role was as vital as the pin in the middle of a millstone, the part that everything else revolves around. This idea that true leadership needs this unique flowing knowledge is a cornerstone for the Shia view of who has the right to lead.
I mean, the language here is just so visceral, so raw. To describe the pain of that time, the speaker uses this intense image of trying to live with a thorn in your eye and a bone stuck in your throat. It paints a picture of constant, silent agony, of feeling a deep injustice but choosing to be patient instead of starting a conflict.
Okay, so leaving the specific history and politics aside for a minute, the sermons also build this incredible ethical framework. A huge part of the text is dedicated to these universal moral teachings, and that's really the spiritual heart of the whole collection.
You see this theme pop up again and again, this contrast between two worlds. First, there's dunya, which is this world we live in now. It's described as beautiful, but also deceptive and temporary. It's a place for preparation. And then there's akhirah, the hereafter, which is presented as the real goal, the permanent reality, where the prize is paradise.
So, okay, if this world is a test, how do you pass it? The sermons keep coming back to this concept of taqwa. Now, piety is a decent translation, but it's more than that. Think of it as God consciousness, this constant mindful awareness of your actions, almost like a shield that helps protect you from messing up.
And wow, this metaphor from Sermon 16 just paints such a clear picture. It says, a life of sin is like being on a wild, out-of-control horse that's just galloping straight for a fire. You're not in control at all, but taqwa, that state of piety, is like riding a well-trained horse. You're holding the reins, and you can guide it calmly right into paradise.
And that brings us to our final point here, the practical application of all this. These sermons aren't just philosophy to be debated. They're a direct call to live your life in a certain way.
And this is really important. This isn't just some abstract philosophy. These sermons are a direct command to do something. They're filled with instructions to stand up for justice, to speak out against what's wrong, and to never, ever be passive when you see falsehood. You aren't meant to just listen to these words. You're meant to be changed by them and become a force for good.
So when you put it all together, you get this picture of the ideal person, right? It's someone who isn't just defined by one thing, but by this whole combination of unwavering justice, real courage, that inner shield of piety or taqwa, self-discipline, and just a solid commitment to the truth, no matter how hard it is. And let's end on this final thought. One of the sermons has this really striking line, "Lighten your burdens so that you may catch up." It's a call to let go of all the unnecessary weight, all the worldly stuff, the grudges, the ego, that slows us down on our spiritual path. You know, it's a message from 1400 years ago, but it makes you ask a very modern question. What burdens are we carrying today that we really need to let go of?